My wife cheated on me with her boss, and now she's claiming I stole $200, $0 from our joint account to hide it. But the real shocker is her secret connection to my estranged sister I never suspected. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, but here I am, trying to make sense of the chaos that's taken over my life. It all started with little things: missed calls, late nights, her changing attitude. But the real bombshell dropped when I accidentally saw the messages on her phone. I was just trying to grab it to check the weather, and there it was, an entire string of texts between her and her boss, Mark, that made my stomach turn. They weren't just professional, they were flirtatious, intimate, and downright inappropriate. I read words I didn't want to see, words that made my blood boil. Can't wait to see you tonight. Miss you already. Let's forget everything else and just be together. My wife, Lisa, is the kind of woman who always had a sharp tongue and a bitchy attitude when she didn't get her way. She's beautiful, confident, and knows it. But beneath that veneer, I always sensed she loved control, and that's what made this so hard to grasp. I'd suspected she was cheating before, but I pushed it aside, thinking maybe I was paranoid or overthinking. But this was undeniable. The way she'd been acting lately, secretive, always on her phone, brushing off my questions with a dismissive laugh, trying to pretend everything was fine. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't have proof. Until that night. I was sitting on the couch trying to unwind after a long day at work when she came home late again, smelling like perfume I didn't recognize. She was in a rush, acting defensive when I asked where she'd been. I pressed her and she snapped back with some bullshit about a last-minute meeting, but I wasn't buying it. Something was off. Then I remembered the phone. I grabbed it from her purse, something I never do, but I was desperate, and I saw the messages. My world crumbled in that instant. My wife, my partner, was screwing her boss. The man who's been paying for our vacations, our house, our lifestyle, was also screwing my wife behind my back. The betrayal hit me like a freight train. I felt numb, then furious. I wanted to scream, to shout, to do something to make her regret what she'd done. But instead, I just stared at the screen, trying to process what I'd found. How long has this been going on? How could she lie to me, pretend everything was normal when she was out there with him? I kept thinking about the money too, how she always claimed we couldn't afford certain things, yet she was spending so much on her secret meetings with Mark. And then there was the worst part, the suspicion that there was more to her lies than just cheating. I had a gut feeling there was something darker, something I hadn't uncovered yet. I remember feeling sick, like my stomach was sinking into my shoes. I didn't sleep that night, just sat there staring at her phone like it was the key to everything. I knew I had to confront her, but I also knew I needed to be careful. I couldn't just accuse her without proof, but I couldn't ignore what I'd seen. My mind was racing. Was she planning to leave me? Did she already have her bags packed? And what about the money? I had a suspicion she might be hiding something more than just her affair. Maybe she'd been stealing from us, or maybe Mark was involved in some shady business that I didn't know about. The whole thing felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The next morning, I decided I couldn't keep quiet anymore. I needed answers, truth, no matter how ugly. I waited until she was in the shower, then I grabbed her phone again. I went through her emails, her texts, her bank statements, anything I could find, and what I discovered made my blood run cold. There were strange transactions, withdrawals I didn't recognize, and even an email from a lawyer discussing some secret account under her name. How could she have done all this behind my back? How could she lie so easily? I felt like I was losing my mind. My wife, the woman I loved, was not only cheating on me with her boss, but was also involved in some serious financial deception. When she finally came out of the shower, I was waiting for her in the living room, my hands trembling. I looked her straight in the eyes and asked, "Lisa, what's going on? Who is Mark? And what about all these transactions? Did you steal from us?" Her face twisted into a sneer and she rolled her eyes like I was bothering her. "Oh, come on, Jake," she snapped. "You're just paranoid. You always think the worst. Mark's just a friend and those transactions are just some investments I've been making. Don't be so dramatic." Her voice was icy, her tone dismissive, but I wasn't buying it. I knew she was lying. I could see it in her eyes. She was hiding something, and I was determined to find out what it was. That's when the real shock hit me. While I was digging through her emails, I found a message from her sister, Melissa, that made my blood run even colder. It was a private email sent just a few days ago, talking about how she was helping Lisa hide money from me, money that was supposedly gone, stolen, or lost. But the truth was, Lisa's sister was involved in this scheme, and I had no idea. How deep did this betrayal go? My wife's secret connection to my estranged sister, someone I hadn't spoken to in years, was the last thing I expected to discover. And now I felt like I was drowning in lies. I didn't sleep that night either. I kept replaying everything I'd uncovered, trying to piece it all together. The affair, the money, the secret family tie, I couldn't believe I'd been living in this nightmare. All I knew was that I had to confront her again, face her with the evidence, and demand the truth. But I also felt a dark urge building inside me: revenge. I wasn't just going to let her walk away, cheat, steal, and lie to me without consequences. No, she was going to pay for this, whatever it took. I was done being the victim. I was going to make sure she regretted betraying me, and I was going to do it in a way she'd never see coming. The confrontation I'd been planning all night finally came the next evening. I sat her down in the living room, trying to keep my voice steady but feeling the anger bubbling beneath the surface. I laid out everything I'd found: the texts from Mark, the suspicious bank transactions, the secret email from her sister Melissa. Her face twisted in a mixture of anger, annoyance, and that typical bitchy smirk she always wears when she thinks she's in control. "Lisa," I started, voice low but firm, "I know about you and Mark. I know you've been sneaking around, sleeping with him, and hiding money from me. Don't bother denying it. I've seen the messages, and I found out about your sister too. What the hell is going on?" She rolled her eyes, crossing her arms. "Oh, please, you're overreacting, Jake. You always do this. You think every little thing is a conspiracy. Mark's just a client, and those transactions, investments. You're just jealous because I'm smarter with money than you are. And Melissa, she's just trying to help me out. You're making it all up in your head." I clenched my fists, feeling the rage boiling over. "Stop lying. I know she's involved. I saw the email where she's helping you hide money. And you're telling me none of this is true. You've been screwing your boss, lying to my face, and stealing from us. How long has this been going on?" Her eyes flashed with fury. "You don't get to accuse me of everything, Jake. Yeah, I cheated. So what? It's not like I ever loved you the way I love myself. Mark's just a way to feel alive, okay? And the money? You're just paranoid because I've been trying to protect us from your stupid investments that never go anywhere. Besides, I don't owe you an explanation for anything. I do what I want." Her words hit me like a punch in the gut. I felt a mixture of shock, betrayal, and deep-seated anger. How could she just dismiss everything so casually? I thought about the years we'd spent together, the plans we made, the life we built. And now it was all crumbling because of her lies, her infidelity, her greed. I wanted to scream at her, to shake her until she told me the truth, but I kept my composure, knowing I needed to be strategic. I pushed a little harder. "You think you can just lie and cheat your way out of this? You think I'm stupid? I found your secret account, Lisa. You've been funneling money into some offshore thing, haven't you? That's why you've been so secretive about your phone and your finances. You've been hiding everything from me. And Melissa, your sister, she's been helping you cover it all up. How deep does this go?" She scoffed, her bitchy smirk growing wider. "You're so naive, Jake. You think you're some kind of victim here. I do what I want, and if you don't like it, that's your problem. I don't owe you anything anymore. Honestly, I'm bored of this whole thing. I don't even care if you're mad. I've already made up my mind." That's when I saw the first sign of real panic in her eyes. She was trying to keep her composure, but beneath that I could tell she was starting to crack. She knew I had her dead to rights. The truth was out, and there was no denying it anymore. I'd uncovered her lies, her affair, and her financial schemes. And the worst part, I realized this wasn't just about betrayal. This was about a calculated plan to control everything, to steal from me, and to keep her secrets buried deep. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I knew I had to decide what to do next, but my mind was spinning. Part of me wanted to explode, to end things right then and there. But I also knew I needed a plan, something precise and ruthless. She thought she was clever, that she could lie her way out of everything, but I was done being the fool. I had evidence more than enough, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. Her voice broke the silence, sharp and bitter. "You're wasting your time, Jake. You're just jealous because I found someone who actually cares about me. Mark treats me like a queen. You never did. Maybe it's time you face the fact that I'm done with this marriage. I've already moved on and I don't care what you do now." That was the moment I realized she was serious. She was ready to walk away, to leave me with nothing but the wreckage of what we had. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Not without consequences. I had to think carefully about my next move. I knew her, and I knew how vindictive she could be when cornered. If I played my cards right, I could turn the tables and make her regret everything she'd done. I just had to be patient, precise, and ruthless. As she stormed out of the room, throwing her purse over her shoulder, I sat there stunned. My mind was racing, trying to process everything. The betrayal, the lies, the money, the secret connection to my sister. I knew this was just the beginning. I had to act fast, to plan my revenge, to make sure she paid for what she'd done. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that people like her don't get away with this kind of betrayal without consequences. And I was going to be the one to deliver them. The days that followed were a blur of planning and furious reflection. I couldn't sleep much, constantly replaying her words, her lies, the whole mess she'd created. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, that smug smirk she always used when she thought she'd outsmarted me. I knew I had to act, but I also knew I had to be smart about it. If I made one wrong move, she'd spin her web and I'd lose everything. My money, my reputation, maybe even my sanity. I started by digging deeper into her financials. The offshore account she'd been funneling money into, as I suspected, was more than just some investment. It was a full-blown scheme, possibly involving her sister Melissa. I found emails, tons of them, discussing how to hide the money, how to transfer it without leaving a trace, and how to make it look like legitimate business expenses. And her sister. She was right in the middle of it, helping her cover her tracks. I couldn't believe I'd been blind to this all along. My wife wasn't just cheating on me. She was actively stealing from us, lying, manipulating everyone around her. I also discovered the real extent of her affair with Mark. The texts weren't just flirtation. They'd been planning to meet up again, to run away together, probably after she drained our accounts. I found receipts for hotel bookings, private dinners, even a secret email chain about how they'd split the money once she left me. It was sickening. I felt like I'd been hit with a sledgehammer. My first instinct was to confront her again, but I knew better. I needed a plan. I had to get hard proof, something bulletproof to take her down. So I started recording her calls, saving emails, and even hiring a private investigator to follow her. I wanted to catch her red-handed, prove her guilt beyond a shadow of a doubt. Meanwhile, I was also gathering financial evidence, bank statements, transaction histories, anything that could serve as leverage. One night, I decided I'd had enough of her lies. I set up a hidden camera in the living room, nothing violent, just enough to record her when she thought she was alone. I wanted her to slip up, to catch her in the act of lying or cheating. I knew she loved to manipulate, to twist the truth, but I was determined to catch her in her own game. That night, I saw her come home late again, sneak into her phone and make a call to Mark. The conversation was brief but revealing. She told him she'd taken care of the money stuff, that everything was falling into place, and that soon she'd be free. That was the confirmation I needed. She was planning to run away, with Mark, with the money, with everything we'd built. I felt a mixture of rage and heartbreak. How could she do this? How could she lie so effortlessly? I'd loved her, trusted her, and she'd been plotting her escape behind my back all along. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I knew I had to act fast. So I contacted a lawyer, someone I trusted, to prepare for what was coming. I didn't want to tip her off, but I needed to be ready for the fallout. I also reached out to a few friends, people I could trust to support me when the inevitable confrontation happened. I knew she was dangerous when cornered, and I had to be prepared for her to lash out. Meanwhile, I started to think about revenge, not just legal but personal. I wanted her to feel what I felt. I wanted her to understand that betrayal like this comes with consequences. So I devised a plan. I would use her own secrets against her. I'd leak her financial schemes to the authorities if I had to, expose her to her boss Mark, and make sure her reputation was shredded. But I also wanted her to know that I wasn't just going to walk away. I was going to make her regret every lie, every betrayal, every stolen dollar. All the while, I kept hearing her deny everything, trying to paint herself as the victim. She claimed I was paranoid, that I was making it all up, that I was just jealous and insecure. That's classic narcissist behavior: deny, deflect, lie. But I knew better now. I had the proof, and I wasn't going to let her spin her web anymore. I was tired of being the fool, tired of feeling like I'd been played. And then there was the twist I didn't see coming. I discovered that her connection to my sister Melissa was deeper than I'd imagined. Somehow, Melissa had been involved in helping Lisa hide money, cover her tracks, and even facilitate meetings with Mark. The thought that my own sister was part of this betrayal cut me to the core. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. How could I have been so blind? How could my own family turn against me like this? That revelation changed everything. I realized I had to handle this carefully, keep my emotions in check, but act decisively. The next step was clear. I would confront Melissa, ask her directly about her involvement, and demand the truth. Because if my sister was in on this, I'd have to decide how to handle her too. This wasn't just about my marriage anymore. It was about family, trust, and the dark side of greed. So I prepared myself for what was to come. I knew I was close to the edge, but I also knew I had the upper hand now. Lisa thought she was clever, that she'd get away with everything. But I was done playing nice. The game was over, and I was ready to make her pay, whatever it took. Over the next few days, I kept gathering every piece of evidence I could find. Every email, every transaction, every text message. I knew I had to be thorough if I wanted to take her down properly. The more I uncovered, the clearer it became that Lisa wasn't just cheating. She was orchestrating a full-blown scam. The offshore account was just the tip of the iceberg. She had been funneling money into fake business ventures and using our joint account as a personal ATM. I found receipts for luxury items, expensive trips she claimed we couldn't afford, and even payments to a shady offshore lawyer in the Caribbean. I also learned that she'd been secretly meeting with her boss, Mark, not just for sex, but to finalize their plans. They'd been talking about leaving everything behind me, the house, the life we built, and starting fresh somewhere abroad, probably in some tropical paradise where no one would find them. The thought made me sick. All this time I'd been trusting her with my life, only to discover she'd been planning her escape behind my back. At this point, I knew I needed a backup plan. I contacted a private investigator I'd hired, someone discreet, who could follow her without raising suspicion. I gave him a list of her recent movements, her contacts, and her usual hangouts. I wanted to catch her in the act if I could. The PI reported back that she'd been meeting Mark regularly, sometimes late into the night, always with her phone glued to her hand. She was more than just an affair. She was actively planning her departure. Meanwhile, I also started talking to a lawyer about my options. I wanted to know what legal steps I could take to freeze her assets, get custody of our joint accounts, and prevent her from leaving the country with my money. The lawyer was cautious but clear. I had enough evidence to file for a temporary restraining order to stop her from withdrawing more funds or leaving town. It was a risky move, but I was ready. I couldn't let her run away with everything, especially not after all the lies she'd told. One night, I decided I needed to confront her directly, no more hiding behind the evidence. I set a trap. I told her I wanted to talk about our future, to see if she'd slip up. She came over looking smug, her hair perfect, her makeup done like she was heading out to a party. She was confident, too confident. I played it cool, asking her about her plans, about her meetings with Mark, about the money. She laughed it off, saying I was overreacting, that I was just jealous and insecure. But I had a recording device hidden in my pocket, and I caught every word. That night she admitted to me that she'd been planning to leave, that Mark was the real thing, and that she'd already spoken to a lawyer about transferring her assets. She even told me she'd been done with this marriage for a while, that I'd never really understood her, and that she deserved Better, it was a gut punch to hear her say that out loud, knowing I'd been completely blind to her true nature all along. I knew I had to act fast now. I called my lawyer immediately, handed over all the evidence, and filed for an emergency hearing. I also contacted the bank and froze our joint accounts, making sure she couldn't drain them anymore. I was furious, but I also felt a strange sense of relief. I'd finally caught her in her lies, and I had the proof I needed. Now the game was about to change. But here's the thing. Just when I thought I had her cornered, she pulled out a new trick. She suddenly claimed I was the one stealing money 200 from our joint account. She started accusing me of being the thief, saying I'd been secretly draining our savings while she was out saving the marriage. That was her way of turning the tables, of trying to make me look bad. I couldn't believe her audacity. I knew she was lying, but her words hit hard. It made me question whether she'd planted some of the evidence, manipulated others. That's when I realized she was capable of anything, even lying to the authorities if it meant saving her skin. Meanwhile, I uncovered something even more shocking: her secret connection to my sister Melissa. I found emails that showed Lisa had been in contact with her sister about dividing the assets and covering their tracks. I couldn't believe it. Melissa, my own flesh and blood, involved in this scheme. I always thought she was a good person, but now I saw her differently. She'd been helping Lisa hide money, maybe even helping her plan her escape. That betrayal cut me deeper than anything else. I was furious. How could my own family be part of this? I confronted Melissa directly, demanding the truth. She initially everything, but I had the evidence. I told her I knew she'd been involved, that I'd be taking legal action if she didn't come clean. She finally broke down and admitted that Lisa had begged her for help, promised her a cut of the money if she kept quiet. She said she was just trying to protect her sister, but I saw through that. It was all about greed and betrayal. At this point, I realized I had enough to destroy her. I had the proof to expose her, to ruin her reputation, and to get justice. I was ready to go full throttle. I was done playing nice. I wanted her to suffer, to feel the pain she'd caused me. I knew it was coming. Her world was about to collapse, and I was the one holding the wrecking ball. I had to be strategic, though. I couldn't rush in blindly. I needed to coordinate everything, make sure every move was airtight. The biggest shock was yet to come. While I was gathering all of this, I found out that her plan was even darker than I thought. She'd been talking about framing me for theft, planting fake evidence, even trying to make it look like I'd been abusing her or stealing money from her. She was willing to destroy my reputation if it meant walking away clean. That's when I realized she wasn't just a cheating wife, she was a manipulative, vindictive criminal. And I was her target. I felt a mix of disgust and resolve. I wasn't going to let her ruin me. I was going to fight back with everything I had. The pieces were all in place now. The only thing left was to execute my plan, expose her, protect myself, and make sure she paid for every lie, every betrayal. Because at the end of the day, no one gets away with that kind of betrayal without consequences. I knew I was close to the edge, but I also knew I had to be meticulous if I wanted to bring her down for good. I didn't want her to spin her way out of this again or manipulate the situation to her advantage. So I started coordinating everything carefully. I worked with my lawyer to prepare a comprehensive case, collecting every piece of evidence, every email, transaction, and recorded conversation. I also made arrangements with the private investigator to catch her in the act if she tried to leave town or transfer any more money. The plan was simple but effective. I was going to confront her with everything, but I also wanted to catch her off guard. I told her I had decided to visit my sister for a few days, knowing she'd be suspicious. Meanwhile, I was preparing to serve her with legal papers, freeze her assets, and make sure she couldn't run away with our money or hide behind her lies anymore. I had to act fast because I sensed her desperation growing. She was starting to realize I was onto her, and I knew she'd try to cover her tracks or make a break for it. One evening, I arranged a meeting at her favorite, one she often went to meet Mark or her sister. I told her I wanted to talk about our future, about working things out. I kept my tone calm, but inside I was seething. When she arrived, she was her usual bitchy self, smirking, acting like she was in control. I played along, acting like I was still clueless, but I had everything ready. I had my phone recording, my lawyer on standby, and all my evidence laid out in my mind. I started with the usual small talk, pretending to be open to reconciliation. But then I dropped the bomb. Lisa, I know everything. The affair, the money, the secret accounts, your sister's involvement. I've got the proof. And I'm sick of your lies. Her face froze for a second, then she recovered her composure, trying to brush it off. Jake, you're overreacting. You're just jealous. You always jump to conclusions, she said, smirking again, but I wasn't buying her act anymore. I pulled out my phone, played the recordings I'd made, and laid out the evidence. Her eyes widened and she started to panic. You can't do this, she hissed. You're framing me. You're the thief, not me. I showed her the bank statements, the emails, the transaction receipts. I told her I was about to file for a divorce, to seize her assets, and to involve the authorities if she didn't cooperate. Her face twisted with rage and fear. She tried to deny everything, but the proof was irrefutable. I knew I had her cornered. That's when she snapped. She started screaming, accusing me of everything, saying I'd been secretly stealing money, that I was an abusive husband, that I was trying to ruin her. Her voice was shrill, her eyes wild. I could see her losing control, desperate to cling to her lies. I just sat there, calm but firm, knowing that the truth was finally out. I told her she was done, that her game was over. I had everything I needed to take her down, and I wasn't going to back off now. As I left that night, I felt a strange mix of relief and disgust. Relief because I finally had her cornered, disgust because I'd never imagined I'd be in this situation. The betrayal, the lies, the theft, it was all too much. But I also knew this was just the beginning. I had to follow through, finalize the legal process, and make sure she faced the consequences of her actions. I was determined to see justice done, no matter how ugly it got. And then, just when I thought I was finally gaining control, she threw one last curveball. She claimed I'd been the one stealing money all along. 200, she said I'd hidden in some secret account just to frame her. She looked at me with pure hatred, accusing me of betrayal. I was stunned. How could she be so deluded? Or was she just desperate enough to lie her way out of everything? I knew she was lying, but her words hit me hard. The betrayal cut even deeper because it was so blatant, so calculated. She was trying to turn the tables again, trying to make me look like the villain. Meanwhile, I uncovered something even darker, her secret connection to my estranged sister Melissa. I found emails that showed Lisa had been in contact with her sister about dividing the assets and covering their tracks. I couldn't believe it. Melissa, my own flesh and blood, involved in this scheme. I always thought she was a good person, but now I saw her differently. She'd been helping Lisa hide money, maybe even helping her plan her escape. That betrayal cut me deeper than anything else. I was furious. How could my own family be part of this? I confronted Melissa directly, demanding the truth. She initially everything, but I had the evidence. I told her I knew she'd been involved, that I'd be taking legal action if she didn't come clean. She finally broke down and admitted that Lisa had begged her for help, promised her a cut of the money if she kept quiet. She said she was just trying to protect her sister, but I saw through that. It was all about greed and betrayal. At this point, I realized I had enough to destroy her. I had the proof to expose her, to ruin her reputation, and to get justice. I was ready to go full throttle. I was done playing nice. I wanted her to suffer, to feel the pain she'd caused me. I knew it was coming. Her world was about to collapse, and I was the one holding the wrecking ball. I had to be strategic, though. I couldn't rush in blindly. I needed to coordinate everything, make sure every move was airtight. The biggest shock was yet to come. While I was gathering all of this, I found out that her plan was even darker than I thought. She'd been talking about framing me for theft, planting fake evidence, even trying to make it look like I'd been abusing her or stealing money from her. She was willing to destroy my reputation if it meant walking away clean. That's when I realized she wasn't just a cheating wife. She was a manipulative, vindictive criminal. And I was her target. I felt a mix of disgust and resolve. I wasn't going to let her ruin me. I was going to fight back with everything I had. The pieces were all in place now. The only thing left was to execute my plan, expose her, protect myself, and make sure she paid. For every lie, every betrayal. Because at the end of the day, no one gets away with that kind of betrayal without consequences. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place unexpectedly, and I knew I couldn't hold back anymore. After gathering months of evidence, preparing my legal strategy, and coordinating with the authorities, I was ready to execute the plan I'd carefully crafted. The night I decided to move was tense. I knew she'd be trying to manipulate her way out of this, maybe even try to destroy the evidence or escape. But I was one step ahead. I had everything secured, all my bases covered. I arranged for a police raid at her apartment. My lawyer had already filed for an emergency injunction, freezing her assets and stopping her from transferring any more money. The private investigator had confirmed her last plans to meet Mark, to leave town with the money and start a new life. When the police arrived, she was caught completely off guard, caught red-handed trying to pack her bags, her phone buzzing with last-minute messages from her sister Melissa, messages that I'd already obtained and stored as evidence. She screamed and cursed, calling me every name in the book: crazy, jealous, paranoid. But it didn't matter anymore. All her lies, manipulation, and schemes had been laid bare. The authorities found the hidden offshore accounts, the fake business documents, and the evidence of her attempts to frame me for theft. Her connection to Melissa was also exposed, and both women ended up in handcuffs that night. All I could feel was a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. I'd finally won, but at what cost? The aftermath was brutal. The media caught wind of the story, how a woman had been secretly stealing, cheating, and conning her way through a marriage with her sister's help. My reputation took a hit, but I was more concerned about healing, about rebuilding what I could. I filed for divorce, and the court awarded me the lion's share of the assets, including the money she'd tried to hide. I also got full custody of our children, which was my top priority. Looking back, I realize how much this whole experience changed me. I learned that betrayal runs deep, but even in the darkest moments, truth has a way of coming out. I also learned that some people will do anything, lie, cheat, manipulate, to get what they want. I trusted Lisa, I believed in us, but she was a wolf in sheep's clothing. The biggest lesson: never ignore the warning signs and always protect yourself legally and financially. Now I'm rebuilding my life. It's not easy, and I still feel the sting of betrayal every day, but I'm stronger for it. I've learned to be more cautious, more aware of the people around me. I've also learned that revenge isn't just about hurting someone else. It's about reclaiming your life, your dignity, and your peace of mind. I don't hate her anymore, I just feel sorry for her. She lost herself in greed and lies, and in the end, she paid the price. To anyone going through something similar, trust your instincts, gather your evidence, and don't be afraid to fight for what's right. People like Lisa don't change. They only get worse if you let them. Stand up, protect yourself, and remember, the truth always finds a way to surface. And when it does, justice will follow.